Well, hello everyone, and like talk to you about here is like for public and private line. Talk about say like a type of a phone line to where you can actually have like maybe if it's home or business, any type of for like for home and business reasons. If we were to be like buying if it was a fax machine or if it was an actual home phone, and like talk about right here if we have, like, say, a phone that jack about right here. But other than that, like talk, I say for private, for private, and then public, say use for say for the phone line. For the phone line here, you have right here is a phone, and I can the phone, a connector jack, and I can remember I wanted to have something like this in my own bedroom whenever I was a kid. But in a lot of ways, it was like, yeah, to pay the telephone company about I think it was $52 I think for them to do the wiring, and then of course the drilling with like for how that they would install the jack, and then on the other hand from how it would had to be wired from the telephone, you say, I guess you call it the prop deck box or anything like that, and then how it was installed, and then how they do the drilling and stuff like that. I'm sure that anybody probably say was quite expensive. Speaking of expensive, though, that you have right here is I have these phones right here. You got see the toy phone right there, and then you have is the phone right here, and you got two phones that say connected, and then all right here is a few plugs it is, but just show right here about knowing about you have right there is like the phone adapter right there. I talk about say between public and private line. Between public and private line, we see right here are two MagicJack devices. If most of us have seen like from the MagicJack, like talk about say the service, it is like call service. It is that basically that talk about for knowing about you have these two devices right here plus on a PC or on a Mac, and anybody may think I'm like yeah that they do about similar things. And knowing about really how do you know exactly about for one which one that's used for business and then which one is used for public, and knowing about that knowing about that if there's any type of interference with the line. But other than that, it's like talk about say interference with the line. As we see right here is that you have right here is these connector lines, these connector jacks right here, and we see that there's when I had got hooked up, you had these black wires, of course you see with the green wire, and a lot of times anybody probably say more likely that there's like what you call is a difference though. Really, what is the difference between these two connector lines right here? Basically, you have right here is that it says of course on the instruction manual too, but on here you have right here one that goes into like the inner route, and one goes to the outer route, and basically that they say that that the top one would be it's like optional. You have right here I went ahead and got this connected right here to the actual telephone line, and basically that in order to be able to connect a fax machine or any type of line, if it's between private and then public line, it is if you were to go ahead and have like say your own type of a fax machine, or any type of if it's email contact that inbox or anything like that, maybe something that don't even require all these connections, but how to connect a fax machine, that basically that just like say on an answer machine that you have it to where that you plug it in and then take it out and then plug it in like this. It goes to say directly from the phone. Most of the time with most telephones though, we may say though that that a lot of the battery power it is like talk about I have about to see here two surge protectors, of course, that's used for a number of things, a number of devices I have plugged in into this one certain location. You say here at home, but on your hand, that knowing about that with the devices that we use though, that if we were to be buying our own something that we can use at home, or our own devices such as a fax machine, and just knowing about that about how many plugs of course that we may need. We may wonder though that with the fax machine that how come that there ain't no extra outlet located anywhere, except maybe on the fact about maybe on the top hand about maybe it's like maybe on the paper filter, stuff like that. But on the other hand, something that supplies power. And like they say, it's like how to send a fax. Most of the time with most machines, they have it to where that there will be like say a drawer on the top to where that you select about your number. You go to the up the options about how many pages you want to have faxed, and then that type in the number, and then that you click. It's like for send, and that basically that the scan will come on, like for scan, and then from there you type in the number for where it needs to be faxed, and of course he's like to send it and wait for it to connect. And anybody, if anybody has sent faxes before, knowing about the different ways of how it can be done, and knowing about either on a touch tone, on a touch tone the phone keypad, or if it's like on the system keypad. And anybody may think about they both work about the same, but on your hand, like you say, these are basically two different devices. I'm like, you have right here is the telephone, and you have right here is the fax machine. And basically, though, as long as there's a filter between, say, is that the line, which tell anybody here, since I have this connected to, like, say, a fax machine, to a MagicJack, say, separate line. I talk about between private and then public lines it is, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, there's supposed to be any interference with the connection, or the fact about is it supposed to go sound like or is it supposed to sound like But other than that, I talk about here, and I know about our experience, if there's any time to where it sounds like beep boop beep boop beep, that knowing about the I'm not trying to get a hold of the operator, I'm actually trying to send a fax. But other than that, I talk about here between public and private lines. I'll say between, I say knowing about for emergency services or anything like that, knowing about how to send a fax. For the most part, I talk about between public and private lines. I'm like anybody that may wonder, I'm like that between working a fax machine and any other type of phone line, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, ain't a private line supposed to be about, let's say you're supposed to be in a room measured from here all the way to the wall, and like about this size, and where you can actually talk on the phone. And knowing about that, basically talk about. So far as you're basically talking about, like, yeah, that really, really, do you hear anything? And then knowing about, yeah, do you hear anything? I'm like, well, this is supposed to be a private line. But then this right here, this is like, which goes like the office line, to where like, yeah, just talk. Whatever you're right, knowing about, talk about it's like between public and private line. So I just connect to say a fax machine, or it's like for multiple devices, which what we use it. Knowing about, say between public and private line use.